one more person, but just letting you know they might be jumping on here shortly. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Shiloh Maples. I'm the program manager for Native American Food Sovereignty Alliance. And for at least for a little bit longer, also the coordinator for the Upper Midwest Indigenous Seed Keepers Network. And so today, what we're planning is for the next little bit is I'm going to give an overview of the Indigenous Seed Keepers Network, what we've been up to as a program and kind of where things are headed at in the near future. And then also provide some space for our community partners to share some about their seed keeping work. But before I go ahead and dive in, I'm going to allow Becky to introduce herself, and then I'll go ahead and get started.
All right, so Sagoi Swagwig, Ganyetegelu Niungyat Sungwehuene, Becky Webster Niungyats Otslunige, Magwahoni Wigit to load, Oniote Aga, Niwagadahumanjot, Dulunkawane, Neatwa Genyu. So in English, what I said was, greetings everybody. My name is Ganyetegay, which means snow scattered here and there. My English name is Becky Webster. I am Wolf Clan, I'm Oneida, and I grew up near Duck Creek that runs through the Oneida Reservation. So we have a farmstead here in Oneida that's about 10 acres where we grow Haudenosaunee varieties of corn, beans, squash, sunflowers, tobacco, and most recently sunchokes. So I'm excited to tell you about the work that we've been doing here and this amazing adventurous learning process. Yama.
Thank you. All right, if you bear with me just 1 second, I'm going to start sharing my, I've got some slides to share today while I'm talking. Could one of my moderators give me a thumbs up if you can see that okay? Great, thank you. So again, I'm Shiloh Maples. I'm the program manager for Native American Food Sovereignty Alliance, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Indigenous Seed Keepers Network today. So the Indigenous Seed Keepers Network, also known as ISKIN, is one of our signature programs here at Native American Food Sovereignty Alliance. And as an organization, NAFSA is dedicated to restoring food systems that support Indigenous self-determination, wellness, our cultures, communities, economies, and families, while rebuilding relationships with land, water, plants, and animals that sustain us. The mission of the Indigenous Seed Keepers Network is to nourish and assist the growing seed sovereignty movement across Turtle Island. And as a national network, we leverage resources and cultivate solidarity and communication within the matrix of the regional grassroots seed sovereignty projects. We accomplish this mission by providing educational resources, mentorship training, outreach and advocacy support on seed policy issues, organizing national and regional events and convenings to connect many communities who are engaged in this vital work. And we aim to create a collaborative framework for ethical seed stewardship and Indigenous seed guidelines for tribal communities to guide them as they protect their seeds from patenting and biopiracy. ISKIN is a shade tree of support to the essential work of regional and tribal seed initiatives, as we offer a diverse array of resources aimed at supporting the Indigenous seed movement as a complement to the growing food sovereignty movement across Turtle Island. As a national network, some of our collective goals include working to increase, really our main goal is to work to increase culturally significant seed supply in our communities. Also to build a resilient seed supply at both local and regional levels. Also working to build our collective capacity to steward and care for our seed relatives, which includes increasing our seed literacy and building community infrastructure. And together we're working to revitalize distribution networks and trade routes in which our seed relatives move around the landmass. And right now, we do this through a couple of main focus areas. And so the first kind of like major part of our work within the Seed Keepers Network is establishing regional seed hubs. The Upper Midwest is the first region for ISKN to build these seed hubs. And over the next couple of years, we'll be working with local community partners to expand hub development into other regions. Right now, I'm having conversations with community partners in the Northeast region, the West, and the Southwest. And how these seed hubs really look, or at least how it looks here in the Midwest, is we work in partnership with local leadership to identify priorities in their community and work together to move regional initiatives forward. NAFSA provides these seed hubs with community seed processing equipment that they house and make available to community members. These seed hub and community partners also help us to host youth internship and hands-on education opportunities through field days. And over the next year, ISKN will continue to work closely with each of our hubs or community partners to identify capacity building opportunities and create tools to aid each site's development. And our intention with this, with building these seed hubs, is really to help support place-based solutions and support community-based initiatives that are really relevant to local communities. And so we don't expect that these seed hubs will look the same in every community. And we really look forward to learning alongside our community partners of how this will look in each region. Another big piece of the Indigenous Seed Keepers Network is mentorship and education. So our approach to programming is to train the mentor. We aim to support local leadership and build our collective capacity to care for our sacred inheritance, the seeds. And our programming is centered on farmer education and building seed literacy within communities. We bring together farmers, gardeners, seed advocates together to share best practices and also to reclaim critical aspects of Indigenous culture by helping communities to revitalize traditional seeds and food practices related to agriculture. Through our programming, we empower and strengthen community members' ability to not only grow seed in their communities, but also to grow the next generation of seed stewards. In light of COVID, this year's learning series has been virtual, but we've provided opportunities for our network to build its knowledge and skills related to seed inventories, tools and equipment for various scales of production. And we're getting ready to offer a facilitator series this fall to help prepare local leadership for hosting these type of conversations in their local communities. When we're able, we also host hands-on field days focused on things like hand pollination, how to use the different types of seed cleaning equipment, and different skills-based workshops like that. Beginning in, I believe it was, let's see, I feel like time is moving a little different in COVID times, but I think it was in the fall of 2020, or maybe it was summer of 2020, NAFSA launched our Seed Sovereignty Assessment Toolkit. And the Seed Sovereignty Assessment is really a set of tools that assist communities in assessing both the availability and access to culturally significant seeds. So this approach and toolkit really helps to promote strategic thinking about the relief, recovery, and development, as well as culturally appropriate and traditional uses of seeds. And the assessment itself focuses on really specific seed security problems that communities face, and then informs community planning and response to assist in improving access and to improving overall resiliency of our local seed supplies. And the overall goal of the Seed Sovereignty Assessment Toolkit is to assist Native communities in their efforts as they reclaim their local and traditional seed systems. This resource helps to kind of demystify the dynamic process of creating regional and culturally relevant community seed initiatives. The corresponding training that we offer with this toolkit helps to orient community leaders to the assessment tools and prepares them to host these conversations in their communities. Another area of our work is around seed rematriation. As communities continue to work towards tribal food sovereignty, they're consistently looking to reconnect with culturally significant seed. Right now, NAFSA is preparing to launch a seed rematriation action guide. Some of you may have seen recently our Seed Mother video that was kind of the kickoff part of the release of this specific resource. But this rematriation action guide is really intended to prepare tribal communities to initiate intercultural collaborations with institutions, seed banks, universities, and museums who have seed collections, with the aim of being able to reunite with ancestral seeds. And so it really just helps equip them for initiating and navigating those conversations with those institutions. Looking closer at the work that's happening here, specifically in the upper Midwest part of our network, we're continuing to build capacity as a regional network, establishing a really solid program communication plan that allows us to better facilitate relationship building between all of the partners in our region. We're also trying to reach people whose work aligns with that of our network, but who may not be familiar with ISKCON yet. So at the end of this, I'm going to have a slide that has my contact info. Feel free to reach out to me if you'd be interested in connecting to our network. As many of us have probably witnessed in different ways, you know, the pandemic has led to a lot of different types of hoarding behavior, including around seeds. And for many in our network and in our communities, it really emphasized how crucial seed access is to food sovereignty. And as a network, we coordinated our first regional seed drive this year to help ensure that anyone who wanted access to seed had access to it. And so we're hoping that this regional seed drive will be a replicable model that other regions will be able to kind of take or adapt to kind of do similar seed distributions within their own regions. A key leverage point this year for the Midwest Network has been to focus on empowering and mentoring our emerging leaders throughout the upper Midwest and to help build their capacity for strategic leadership. We've offered, as I said, virtual training and webinar opportunities throughout the year, and we still have a few more planned for this fall. We're continuing to build a framework for a regional seed cooperative that we're hoping that will assist local and regional inventory of seeds, as well as scaling up of seed availability for our intertribal region. As a network, we've been engaging in discussions about creating an Indigenous seed database. We're hoping that this will be an online resource for learning about and connecting to ancestral seeds. And this database would be grounded in Indigenous data sovereignty, would emphasize community narratives around these particular seed varieties, and really emphasize the relationship that our communities have to seed. A lot of the existing seed collections or databases that are out there are not from an Indigenous perspective, and really don't, I think they really lack like the context and kind of really unique relationship that our communities have to seed. And so we're hoping to create a resource that's more reflective of that relationship and really gives our community more autonomy or control over the narrative around specific varieties. And so continuing to move towards establishing a regional seed cooperative, we're working with community partners to identify culturally relevant models of seed distribution that honor both the seeds and their communities of origin. I'll leave this slide up here just for a moment. I'll also drop my email on our website into the chat. But at this point, I'd I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and I'd like to turn it back over to, I guess I'll pass it first to Becky to share a little bit about their work. And then after that, Shelley will have some time as well to introduce herself and to share about your work.
Right, so some of the work that we've been doing here on our farmstead is really the whole process of our seeds and our foods. So we're still relatively new to this. We've only been growing our Indigenous seeds for probably 7 years now. So we have a whole lot to learn, but it started off pretty small for us. We used to have a different home. We had a small garden there, and the seeds just really took over, and we wanted to learn more about our seeds. Not necessarily always the seeds that you can go to your home improvement store or to different stores to purchase them, but ones that our families had kept for generations. So what ended up happening is we sold our home. I left my job, got a different career in academia. My husband left his job, homeschooled our daughters, and we bought 10 acres and built a home here. And we've just been expanding every year our operations here. So our ideas were that we wanted to be able to be another source for people in our community and extended communities to be able to have access to our Indigenous seeds, primarily our Haudenosaunee seeds, and even better yet, our Oneida seeds, the seeds that our Oneida people have been growing since we were removed here to Wisconsin in the early 1800s. We also wanted to talk about how to plant our seeds, how to care for our plants, how to harvest, how to store our foods, how to prepare our foods through different events where the community can come for hands-on learning experiences, which has been a little bit difficult during COVID, but we've had some smaller scale events this summer that have been just amazing. We have a really great network here locally. One of our Oneida chefs has been here a number of times in the farmstead, cooking over an open fire, just preparing these amazing foods that our ancestors made, and in the same ways that they did, using the tools that they did. So it just has a whole different flavor and a whole different feel to that. So when we talked to a faith keeper about what we wanted to do for this property, he came back with the name Ungwakwat Jitnuni Ungwayaya Toslu. It means our foods, where we plant things. So it's a lot more than just like planting the seed in the ground. It's about planting our ideas, our philosophy, and asserting our sovereignty to be able to do these things openly and to celebrate our seeds and all that they mean to us as our relatives. So Shiloh had mentioned some of the rematuration efforts. That's how we're getting a lot of our seeds. We're getting them from Seed Savers Exchange, other farms that have found that they have either Haudenosaunee or Oneida seeds. And we're taking those into our farmstead, growing them, and then handing them back out to the community. which is amazing because some of these seeds maybe haven't been growing here in a long time, or maybe our people haven't even grown them since when we were still with our other Haudenosaunee relatives out in New York. So it's been a real healing journey to be able to care for these seeds and then pass them off to other people who will care for them as well. Another source that we've had for our seeds is our network of amazing mentors, both in the Midwest and out East, who are so patient with all of our questions and just have been an amazing guidance. And the ISKN has also had us, a bunch of novices get together too, and we're sharing with each other. And then we're also sharing who our contacts are. And we're getting to be able to have access to people who hold this knowledge, to be able to guide us to figure out how to properly care for our foods and our seeds. One of the other things that's really exciting to me is this idea of a potential database, because our seeds have traveled, before people were here, our seeds were here and they were moving and they have different stories. And it can be so confusing sometimes because seeds will look the same, but they'll have different names, or they are the same seed, but they've been in other communities for generations. So they have different names. And just to try to get those stories down so that when we share those seeds, we can share those stories with those seeds. And then there's this whole other factor about claiming them and owning them and say, this is our seeds. These are our stories, so that other folks can't come in and try to slap a random name on them and call it theirs. So that we need to be able to protect our rights and our intellectual property, so to speak, that way. So another exciting thing that just recently happened on our farmstead is that we were able to form a 501c3 nonprofit, which is super exciting, because that means that we'll be able to have access to grant funds to be able to continue to host these events for our community. One of the first events that we had about our seeds and caring for our seeds and our foods and celebrating them that way was a grant through the National Science Foundation through the University of Minnesota Duluth. And it was kind of pricey to be able to pull all this together. And we want to be able to have events like that without making it a financial burden for our community members. So I'm hoping that with our nonprofit status, we'll be able to do more of this without it being a burden to our community members. So I'm just excited to see what the future will hold. And I'm looking forward to hearing Shelley again talk about her experiences and any questions y'all might have.
All right, Shelley, whenever you're ready.
Hello, thank you. Sorry for joining a little late. I keep getting confused between Eastern and Central time. So fortunately, I had a little alarm on that made me double check. So thank you, Becky. I really, when I was with Meskwaki Food Sovereignty, with the grant cycle partnership from last year, that was a seed rematuration partnership with Seed Savers Exchange. That was the 2020 season. That's when I got to meet Becky, and then later in the growing season, actually had the opportunity to visit her and her farm, and have just been part of this journey, this collective journey that's just been not just a great to be a part of, but like ultimately what it does is that it forms a type of support system that we all need. The work that we are doing, it's really rewarding. At the same time, it's growing out the different seeds, it takes a commitment that isn't just a growing season commitment, although the growing season can be pretty grueling and kind of nerve-wracking depending on the weather. And, like there's parts of this, even the Midwest, that's been in drought conditions. And that just adds a whole level and a whole layer of anxiety onto a growing season, as well as working with seeds that haven't been grown out for a while. And so sometimes you have really low germination rates to zero germination rates. And so knowing that you have a collective and knowing that you have other partners out there that are also growing out, multiple varieties, it lifts some of that burden off your shoulders, in feeling that, it's all on me, make this year, make it or break it. The other thing I just want to say really quick about Becky's efforts is, like, it's so exciting to see how much herd food sovereignty efforts have grown and expanded in her community. And so it's just, I don't know, I guess I'm saying I'm energized by all of this. Just some really quick points that I wanted to touch on as far as reaching out to folks that are coming into seed keeping is, this is the year 2021. Going back to, I think that most of us are aware of the numbers of unmarked graves found in Canada at the boarding schools, as well as, some of the now, things coming out about the boarding schools here in the United States. And of course, the boarding school system started in the 1800s. So, that's just like one part of the genocide enacted upon in the Indigenous people of this land. But because it involves stolen and ultimately many murdered children, it is a legacy that's still affecting us. So how this connects to seeds is that that stealing away children from their culture. Oh, there's my second alarm. Sorry. And stealing the culture away from generations and generations of children. One of the just one of the most powerful tools that I have been blessed with in overcoming that is these seeds. So what I have found in one growing season of growing out my ancestral Meskwaki seeds is realizing that this connected me to my grandmothers going back thousands of years. Our Meskwaki corn seed is, at least 3,000 years has been kept continually by the Meskwaki people, maybe close to 4,000. That's many generations. And the fact that, in one growing season, you can overcome so much in relationship with these seeds is really something that, I encourage people to kind of take in and think about, as well as engage in when they are faced with the challenges of reconnecting with their culture, of learning their language, of finding their community, rebuilding their community, all of those things. It's once again going back to that collective and how important having this collective of people that are doing this work is so vital, because not just one person can do this. I think that's something that you need to understand coming into this, is that often, we take on, it's like, oh, I only know a little bit of my language. Like I was only raised with, baby words, for example, because, my parents are boarding school survivors, and that choice was made for them. as far as abandoning their language and in order to try to make it in the white world. But that's not, now it's, it's coming back to us where, we are able to make those decisions for ourselves, and we are coming into our own empowerment back through that. But quite honestly, it's like easier said than done. So coming back to the seeds and how this is just a powerful medicine for us. And I think a while back, it dawned on me, I think it was last growing season, that with these seeds, there is no language barrier. It's a universal language. Oh, and sorry, I just got back from some travel yesterday, so I'm a little tired. Just to go over kind of the work that I'm doing now. So I did come from working with my tribe with Meskwaki Food Sovereignty. It was initiative. Now we've dropped the initiative and it's Meskwaki Food Sovereignty. And I left that position in February and handed off the baton to another tribal member, Christina Black Cloud, who is doing great. And now I am working as a consultant in the area of food sovereignty, and also, working on forming creative collectives and other support systems, and learning more about community building. I joined Seed Savers as a seasonal this growing season to expand my seed keeping knowledge. And it was, what a great team and what an experience being with those folks through another challenging seed season. And another shout out to ISKN, as up at Seed Savers, we were stewarding multiple corn, squash, and being ISKN varieties. And, it just cemented how much these partnerships are so valuable to all of these efforts. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Thank you both so much for sharing sharing your words with us. And also, I just want to say that it is one of my life's greatest honors to be in this spiritual work with you both, and with our greater community that understands like the deeper importance and value of this intergenerational work that we're doing. And so thank you both for joining me here today and sharing with all of us some of the work you're doing. I'd love to open it up for questions now, if anybody has any with the remaining time. Also, if either of our moderators have any questions or comments to the conversations that you'd like to add.
As we wait for questions that come in from our audience members, which we encourage to put into the Q&A section, and we'll get those to our panelists. We definitely want to say thank you to the three of you, as well as our panelists that couldn't be here today, Jessica Greendeer, for just really bringing to us and to this sampler of the symposium how important it is for that human relations with each other and with the seeds, and how it connects us. What a powerful things to think about, is saying that the seeds can connect us with our ancestors, and that seeds have no language barriers. So thank you, Shelley, for those kind of words of wisdom to kind of put it into a context that many of our audience members can appreciate. And I don't see any questions yet, but as we get them, we'll probably have Andrea read a question, unless she has one that she wants to start off with.
I can certainly pose a question as they come into the chat. One of the issues that has been raised in other panels today is the problem of land access for this kind of work. And so my question is about land access. Is there work that ISKIN does around generating better land access, or what role does land access play in the discussions that you have?
Well, it definitely is something that comes up in our conversations. It's not something that we have a specific set of resources, tools, or initiatives yet, but we're still a pretty new program. And we're, as an organization, NAFSA is getting ready to engage in some larger program development and assessment work to really think about where our specific niche in the larger food sovereignty kind of ecosystem is. And so I'm sure that that will be part of it. I can say that, and I know, Andrea, you and I have had these conversations outside of these spaces, but you know, that's something I've been thinking a lot is living in Southeast Michigan and having previously worked in Detroit for almost 10 years, land access was a tremendous thing. We kind of, you know, everything kind of pivoted on that. What programming looked like, what we were able to do as a community, and it still does. And so, you know, having moved from that organization, working with NAFSA now and kind of continuing conversations locally around those things. I've been engaging community members in conversations about, you know, what resources exist to support things around the land access, what doesn't exist that we would like to see, and starting to strategize about how we can do some land justice work here in Southeast Michigan, and starting to form some type of collective around that. And so I can't speak to exactly what that looks like yet, but it's forthcoming. Because one gap that has kind of arose out of these conversations is there isn't any public facing entity, at least in this area, that is helping to facilitate that process specifically for Indigenous growers and community members. There are Black farmer funds and in different cities and counties here in Southeast Michigan, but none that really have intentionally included Indigenous people in those conversations yet. And so, but those conversations are starting and opening up.
Shelley, would you like to add a few of the words to that?
Yeah, this has really been a topic of conversation and a challenge that I've been sharing with a larger audience, because there's a lot of assumptions that, you know, that natives have their reservations, you know, and when you look on the map, these reservations are large, but there's not an understanding that those reservations were broken up. And so a lot of the deeds are in non-Indigenous hands, as well as the type of policies and laws that really prevented, you know, economic, you know, which includes farming, you know, but, you know, economic empowerment on native land. And I mean, they were designed to prevent that. You know, we were supposed to, you know, our reservations were designed to be internment camps, and we were supposed to die off, you know, and so, and it, you know, when you compare it to the Black farmers, you know, all the policies and the, you know, white supremacist paradigms were created to make sure that Black farmers went away. You know, they were, you know, folks knew how to grow food really well. And the reason that the farms fell out of those hands were by policy, you know, it was by design. And it's this, you know, the the challenges are real, and there's just so much assumptions that, and even specifically with Meskwaki, so we own our own land, and we have a settlement as opposed to a reservation that's grown to over 8,000 acres, but that doesn't mean that there's land access for even me, to do any type of farming enterprise, because the land is held collectively. And so it's, part of the conversation is just overcoming, assumptions and disinformation, and, and then moving on from there. It's when people really do want to address these issues and say, what do you need? It's like, well, we need land, we, certainly on a personal level, I'm not coming from any type of economic status that would empower me to purchase land. And so I've been having conversations with land stewardship, like there's a land stewardship nonprofit organization here in Iowa called Sustainable Iowa Land Trust, SILT. And they certainly are, more than happy to work with me as far as land access, but land access is just like, that's just the tip of it, because, a project such as, starting an agricultural enterprise or any type of growing, enterprise, that really takes community, that takes a collective. Once again, it's just like you trying to take it on completely on your own, especially when you don't have a type of financial power in order to invest in land, in equipment, in, there's amazing grants out there through the NRCS for high tunnels and for fencing and all of that stuff. But like, if you just don't have anywhere to start from, like, how are you going to do that? And having the know-how to do that too. Like, I didn't know that any of that existed until I worked in, within my tribe with food sovereignty. And, what is the NRCS? So, how would other aspiring Native farmers out there know about these different organizations and have the know-how? But going back to, land access, that's just huge. And it's, and the funny thing that I was up on the Mississippi this weekend, learning how to do water lotus harvest, and just exploring the backwaters and trying to figure out plant identification and trying to figure out, how to find the differentiate between the rhizomes and the actual fruiting bodies. It's all like it's fun, it's humbling, as well as working with the seeds. It's a very humbling experience, and in a medicinal way, in a good way. But as we were, taking our kayaks out of the water, this lady, she was asking us about what we were doing, and she mentioned, oh, this is a national park refuge, so it may be illegal for you to remove any of these plants from the water. In the meantime, they're heading out to go fishing, and they're white people. And she had a European accent at that. And it just really hit me, because it's just like, wow, like, I think I have sovereign rights to go out here and explore, the backwaters and try to, learn about, the wild harvesting that my grandmothers did. But it's gosh, that's just one example of just the layers and layers, not just financial, but the layers and layers of barriers to access that's out there, whether it's growing food, farming, or wild harvesting. Yeah.
I don't know if we have time, but I have some thoughts on that as well. Here in Oneida, we don't have a problem with land access necessarily in the classic way. So Shelley had mentioned about how our land was taken away Many communities face that. In Oneida, we were hit especially hard. Within one generation, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, we lost 90% of our land. And we were an agricultural people. So how do you farm if within one generation, you lose 90% of your land? And there are stories during that time period where people were sent away to boarding schools and came back to their family farm only to see that it was owned now by white people, and they had to work on that farm just to feed their family. So it's, we had a whole lot of trauma going with our land bases. So now we're in a fortunate situation to be able to reacquire a lot of our land that was lost through that process. But in that way of reacquiring it, we've reacquired so much, we don't know what to do with it. We don't have the capacity to do anything other than what we have since been taught through, that whole boarding school, Christian imposed knowledge to conventionally farm. So we have GMO soybeans, GMO corn on our tribal lands now. And most of that is from our own tribal government that's doing that, because we don't know how else to do it. Sure, we have our organic farm that has a small little area, but the other farms are 100 times that size here on the reservation. And even if you are fortunate enough to get a piece of land, like we were able to purchase land through, but the land that we bought was damaged. It had over 2,000 tires thrown on this property. It had barrels of who knows what was on there, stockpiles of old wood that was on this property. And we had to do a lot of cleanup. And when we did soil testing, this soil was so heavily damaged. I'm still amazed every year that how generous these seeds are and what they're giving to us, even though they know how awful our soil is here. So we have a lot of work to do, not only just with our seeds in our property here, but to change the mindset of our tribal communities that, soybeans and corn isn't really, those human beings don't even eat those things. So why are we dedicating so much of our resources to do the way that non-Indians have taught us to do things, and to reclaim what we should be doing with that? And I would rather see that land be left vacant and plant trees on it than continually try to go and plant these horrible GMO crops on them. So that's just my 2 cents about my frustrations with when we finally do have the land, we don't even know how to use it.
There's that issue. Thank you so much for clarifying my own question, that it's not simply about land back, that it's also about the land that is already there or in use. And some of the questions, some of the comments in the chat have reiterated some of these issues too, by mentioning soil remediation that's needed, or regeneration because of contamination. And of course, this is directly related to seed sovereignty. So it's a complex web of relations that have to be considered, including the problem of public lands, national parks, or as David Michener brings up as well, that colonial institutions hold seeds and hold land, and they have a responsibility to provide or help provide land access and to give back what has been institutional lands. So Scott, did you want to add the next question?
Sure. We have a question from Stacy Pope that was wondering, within your Seedkeepers Alliance, and I'm sure she's also referring to the Indigenous Seedkeepers Network, if the participation internationally, specifically from Canada, has been thought of, or if that's possible or in the works.
So from my knowledge, there's a existing network already that's Indigenous led within Canada. And we do have relationships with that organization, that's Sovereign Seeds, or Sovereign Seeds Network. And so they've already been, I think, initiating some of their own work. And so instead of duplicating that, we try to direct folks to whoever's closest to them. So either community-based initiatives or to that network within Canada. at least in the time that I've been with NAFSA and ISKIN, we haven't really discussed, expanding internationally, but I think that we're constantly collaborating and in partnership with, in I think both informal and formal ways with our relatives beyond borders. So I know that's kind of a complicated answer, but
we have time. There is one more question in the chat.
Actually, Andrea, if I could actually ask a question on seeds. So Becky, I know that I mean, with Oneida, at least with the Haudenosaunee seeds, that there's more of an availability of of seeds there. But for a lot of communities, there's not as much that still, at least that we know of, that is surviving and viable. So for the panel, what's your recommendation for communities that where all or a good portion of your seeds have been lost? And in that case, what do you do to try to to move forward?
Shelley, do you want to go first, or do you want me to? I guess I can. I'll go ahead and jump in.
Well, no.
Oh, okay.
I'd say one of the first steps. Sorry. We have a like data lag, don't we, in our no, I just want to say, like, where do you get started? Well, right here with Shiloh and ISKN, for example. Shiloh and I were just on a call earlier today, a partnership with Seed Savers Exchange. And so between NAFSA, of course, ISKN is within NAFSA, and Seed Savers Exchange, that's a powerful alliance of seed stewards and, that have, an extensive collection. And I would encourage people to contact them and to, once again, like, become part of the collective, because this is it's not only for seed sharing, it's also for knowledge sharing, and more importantly, or just as equally important, I should say, it's for sharing that support system. Because I see here in the comments that Jessica, a statement she made, why does everyone expect us all to be resilient and sovereign? We are in survival mode and it's too much. And it's like, yes, I completely agree. And that's why we need these systems, like Dan said, not only to access, seeds, access, these physical things to help us get started back on this path to food sovereignty, but we need that information. We need that shared knowledge. And we also need that support, where we support each other in our efforts. Because it's really easy to feel like you're kind of operating in a vacuum. All of us are kind of spread out, and also so many of us aren't able, to be on this shared land base, with our community. And so, there's just so many different challenges out there. Shiloh, I'm going to just hand it to you for more specifics on how to contact you and then the other entities for seeds.
Thanks, Shelley. I'm preparing to drop the info into the chat here for both NAFSA and Sovereign Seed Network in what is known as Canada. I guess I just, as we're wrapping up, want to reemphasize what Shelley just said of just start where you're at. That's what my mentors told me, and it's worked out pretty well. So strengthening those relationships, making new connections, either through our network or in your local community. And I really feel in my heart that the seeds have a very magical and mysterious way about them of reconnecting people who are looking for them. I know that's been true on my own journey of seeds that I didn't know were out there. And, you know, I've been reconnected with several of my ancestral seeds over the last several years, but it's just taking that first step of putting that intention out there. And I think that you'll find each other.
Definitely. We want to, on behalf of, you know, us panelists and Andrea and I, and just on behalf of the seeds, we want to thank the three of you for caring